The Senate passes a government funding extension to keep the government open. Because, of course, you can't have the government shut down when Democrats control all three major pieces of Congress and the executive branch. So we'll be talking just a bit about that and, well, my disappointment. Because I am very disappointed. I knew it was coming and I'm still disappointed. In other news, Kamala Harris goes over to visit the DMZ and announces a massive alliance that we have with North Korea that I'm not completely sure anybody knew about. And I mean, if we've had this long-time alliance, what was all the little red button talk about? Seriously. But we'll go over some of that and where we go with that. The House passes a school-based mental health bill that actually has very little to do with mental health or schools, surprisingly enough. So we'll talk about that. We'll go over some of what's in the bill, but it is quite lengthy. It's already linked in the Discord, and I'll link it in the chat later on, and you guys can go see what's going on with it for yourselves. And Jordan Peterson gets in the news because apparently he's sad over the fact that Olivia Wilde calls him an incel hero. I don't know that this is a completely relevant story, but it does give me a chance to do my Jordan Peterson voice. So we'll be doing that. We'll watch the video and we'll talk a bit about some of that. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to hurricane season. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning and happy Friday, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. I slept again last night, although I did get to bed a little bit late last night. I'm still wired up, got the energy, and ready to go here. And we've got a lot to go over here today, so strap yourselves in, grab yourself something cold to drink, or warm to drink, because it's cold as hell outside. A little bit of coffee, a little bit of cocoa, something to keep yourselves up and going. Maybe you'll get a little bit of oatmeal. It's not Sunday, so I'm not eating oatmeal, but maybe you'll get yourself a little bit of oatmeal, and it'll make you feel real warm and fuzzy inside. But wherever you're choosing here to have with your morning slate of news, come on in, join in, sit down, and chat today too, by the way. And I'll be giving periodic reminders throughout the program as well. If you are just lurking, chat today. One of the things that kept me up last night was I went through and made sure, and Restream was running a little bit slow last night while I was trying to do this, that I have the names of everybody who chatted in here this week written down, and every name on here is individually going to get a nice thank you from me, from your host, for coming in and taking the time in the morning to come back and chat and hang out. Make some new friends among the live chat. Talk about what's going on with the news, and talk about what it is that you guys want me to see in the news as well. I do read all your chats, even though I don't sit down and go over them, except unless it's really, really relevant, because I do always have it over here, except for right now, obviously. But since I always do have it up over here, I do see what you guys are saying, and we will go over some of the live chat again too today, which is why I'm saying make sure you guys chat today, because, hey, if you want it to be said, then it can be said in the company of an AM radio audience, because we are trying to cater to that with this time slot. Let's be realistic about that. Then it will get read live on the air and reacted to live on the air. So strap in, sit down, no texting and driving. if you are on your morning commute, wait till you get to work or just hang tight. Otherwise, come back in and we'll see what's going on with the news. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Also, go check out KTZed, who is putting out a new true crime stream this weekend. So that's going to be fun. It was something about Knoxville. I saw that. I just kind of glanced over. Mr. Zed put out the tweet, so go check that out. Tweets by Brit. Always a fun one. Always one to come in and, well, turn the tide on people who think that they're just having a one-on-one conversation over on Twitter. Thank you, Tweets by Brit, for that, by the way. Also, go check out Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks podcast. Go check out PJ Patriot and a host of other people who are my friends, who will also come down and give you news by the common man for the common man, because that is one of the important parts to me is, and I've said this for a long time, we get our news and our culture from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses and drive cars that cost more than we'll make in our entire lives. Why not get news, politics, and culture from people who've had to make the same decisions as you? People who look at this and say, how am I going to make ends meet? I've had to make that decision. I've had to make that decision recently. I don't ever want to make that decision again, but I've had to make that decision recently. So, sit down, have a drink, have a coffee, and let's get into the news of the day. We're going to start, as usual, with finance. I got a little bit of finance to talk about here today. Number one we're going to talk about is the Dow, which did wind up spending its day down again yesterday. It fell off right at the beginning of the day. It tried to bring itself back about, and I don't think we did hit a new low. No, we did not hit a new low. We got close. We brushed up against the previous low, but we didn't get there. However, closing yesterday at 29,225.61. So it looks like the futures are turning up right now. It does look like the 29 to 30,000 may be our stubborn new meeting point up until midterms, and we'll see what happens after that. But I don't think we're going to drop back up, but it doesn't look like it's showing any indication right now of going back to its 33, 34, 35,000 mark either. But we'll see what's happening with that and where that goes. Looking in at your Bitcoin. Bitcoin is on a free fall right now. As its numbers go, we are currently at 19,385.30 for your Bitcoin. That's down on the day $270 and 10 US cents, about 1.06% on that. But we'll actually get a refresh and see where it's at right now. Yeah, it took a bounce and then it tried again. So now it's down 323.50 or 1.65%. Bring this back out to the 5-day to see what happened throughout the day yesterday. And yesterday, it had some swings, but it almost pretty much stayed steady throughout the day yesterday. So we will continue to watch the Bitcoin and see where it goes from there. I do think that 18,220 is kind of where we're going to be sitting here for a little while on Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to swing upward or downward unless we get a major piece of economic news on the recession. But there again, I actually don't know if it's going to go up or down at that point, whether people are going to jump to try to get themselves out of US dollar currency, or if they're going to go sell it off just to continue to go buy the diapers and anything else they can get their hands on that they need. So that's what we see coming off the Bitcoin. Gas, with our new format for gasoline, does look like that's actually slightly on the downswing right now. A lot of the stations that we saw at $3.99 or higher have come down a little bit. We look at the Quick Trip, $9.49. Out on the east side is at $3.89. That was at $4 yesterday. The Exxon is still at $4. The Quick Trip closer to the Isthmus is down at $3.96. $3.90 on the Isthmus at the Amoco. Going out west, we see $3.89, $4. So a little bit of a mixed bag with them. Some of them are going up, some of them are staying steady, but most of them are coming down ever so slightly. So that's what we see coming out of that. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. From Investors Business Daily. Dow Futures Treasury yield falls with inflation data due. Nike dives on inventories. From Ed Carson. Dow Futures rose slightly Friday morning along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, but pairing gains while the Treasury yields fall. Nike and Micron earnings are in focus with the Fed's favorite inflation gauge on deck. The stock market sold off hard on Thursday, wiping out Wednesday's gain. The S&P hit fresh bear market lows, and the Nasdaq Composite has not quite undercut its June lows, but the big cap Nasdaq 100 did, led by Apple stock and Tesla. Treasury yields rebounded somewhat Thursday, while jobless claims fell to a 5-month low, something the Federal Reserve did not want to see. Apple and CarMax spurred broad losses on Thursday after slashing losses Wednesday, spurred by a report of scaled-down iPhone production due to lackluster demand. Well, it's an iPhone. There should always be lackluster demand for an iPhone. Oh look, we're back up to the top. Apple stock sold off hard on Thursday, partly on an analyst downgrade, with iPhone chipmakers also struggling. CarMax badly missed earnings views Thursday, warning of affordability challenges for largely similar reasons. Moody's downgraded the outlook for the global automotive industry to negative from stable. CarMax stock crashed, sinking other auto dealers, but General Motors, Ford, Stellantis, and Tesla also sold off. Well, again, we're in a situation, and this is... we hear other commentators talk about it. I don't talk about it as much because I don't understand the concept as broadly as some of them do. I understand the most simplistic terms, but it does appear that we are in a stagflationary cycle. Or wages are stagnant, people can't afford to go out and buy the new car, or even sometimes fix the current car that they have. I know that I look at the tread on my tires every day and cry a little bit, because the wages just aren't there. They're not growing, they're not jumping up for anything. People who got raises this year are looking at the fact that the groceries are costing a fortune and they can't go run out and get a new set. Or, I'm sorry, they can run out and keep themselves fed, but any of the either mandatory when it comes to a vehicle or even some of the optional stuff they can't do if they want to go out and buy something new. I've got people that are running up to me every time I go over to the dealer because with fixing some things on my credit lately, I have currently and recently wondered if it would be feasible for me to go out and get a newer vehicle, even though if I upgrade from my pickup, I'm going to get to the point where, I've got to go to aluminum body, and I don't really want to do that. But to get something better for the same kind of payment, because I'll now have a lower interest rate anywhere I go. But the prices just aren't there. I'm looking at things that are similar to my pickup when I bought it, and thinking to myself, wow, this is double the price of what it was. Because they spent so much money to get it on the lot. Because they were trying to incentivize people to go buy new. Or sending out those offers that the offers are out there that are 20 grand more. 20 grand. 2 grand, 3 grand, 5 grand more than what people bought their trucks for. My pickup, I can probably still get more than I paid for it out of it. I don't think I'm going to get 22 grand out of it anymore, but I can still get more than I paid for out of it right now because they need inventory. Although not as much right now because the stuff that they have out there is just kind of sitting. So it's a mixed bag right now. And CarMax is going to be the hard part of that because they bought all the stuff on high dollar trying to get inventory coming through because they are pretty much exclusively used car over at CarMax. So they got stuff at high dollar and now they're trying to unload it without taking a massive loss. It's a weird situation that we have coming up here on the auto industry. Tesla has a lot of news coming up. Tesla will hold its annual AI Day on Friday night. Over the weekend, Tesla will likely release Q3 delivery figures, but Tesla stock investors won't have a chance to respond to those events until Monday morning. Tesla on Thursday night denied a local media report that the EV giant would significantly cut Model 3 and Y prices in China. There's been growing speculation that Tesla would cut some China prices early October. On the earnings, Nike earnings and sales narrowly topped fiscal first quarter consensus, but gross margins fell significantly versus a year earlier, mostly on liquidating excess inventory in North America. North American inventory surged 65% versus a year earlier. The Dow athletic apparel giant said it will take decisive action to get rid of wanted wares. Nike stock sold off 11% in pre-market trading. Nike stock slid 3.2% Thursday to 95.52, hitting a fresh 2-year intraday low. Micron slightly topped while revenue fell short. The memory chip giant guided significantly lower for the current fiscal first quarter. It also plans to slash wafer fab equipment spending up by up to 50% in the current fiscal year versus fiscal 2022. Micron rose more than 1% in early Friday. Micron stock fell 1.9 to 50.01 on Thursday's session after hitting a 23-month low last week. Micron's capital spending isn't good news for the memory-exposed chip equipment giants such as Applied Materials, KLA Corporation, Lam Research. All three stocks fell modestly early Friday. In other news, IBM slashed its quarterly dividend by 78% to 37 cents a share. IBM stock edged higher in overnight action. I'm actually a little bit surprised IBM is still a thing, because I don't know that if I ever see an IBM machine anymore. Mostly everything I see says Dell on the front of it, so anyway, that's what we have for that. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.1 versus fair value. Nike and IBM are Dow components. S&P climbed 0.2 and NASDAQ advanced 0.2. Futures are well off their morning highs. The 10-year yield fell 5 points to 3.7. The pound sank as the UK government signaled it will continue to move ahead with its budget plan that relies heavily on borrowing. China manufacturing surveys for September were mixed. The official manufacturing PMI rose to 50.1 from 49.4 in August, just topping the break-even 50 level and beating the 49.8 forecast, but the private cakes and factory gauge fell 1.4 to 48.1. China's central bank is letting cities lower the floor on mortgage rates if those areas have seen recent home price declines. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the Commerce Department will release its August personal income and consumer spending report. Investors will focus on PCE price index, the Fed's favorite inflation gauge. The overall PCE index should show a slightly cooler 6.1% gain versus a year earlier, but core PCE inflation is seen picking up 4.8% from 4.6%. Let's have a look. Oh, that's not good. 18 minutes ago from CNBC. Fed's preferred gauge shows inflation accelerated in advertisement. Continue without supporting. Even more than expected in August from Jeff Cox. Inflation in August was stronger than expected despite the Federal Reserve's efforts to bring down prices according to data Friday from the central bank, or that the central bank rather follows closely. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, excluding food and energy, rose 0.6 for the month after being flat in July. That was faster than the 0.5 Dow estimate, and other indication that inflation is broadening. On a year-over-year basis, core PCE increased 4.9%, more than the 4.7% estimate, and up from 4.7% the previous month. Including gas and energy, headline PCE increased 0.3 in August, compared with a decline of 0.1 in July. It rose even with sharp decline in gas prices that took the cost at the pump well below the nominal record, above $5 a gallon earlier this summer. The Fed generally favors a core PCE as the broadest indicator of where prices are heading as it adjusts for consumer behavior. In the case of either core or headline, the data Friday from the Commerce Department shows inflation running well above the central bank's 2% long-run target. This is breaking news. Check back for updates on Monday after they sit down and say, okay, how do we spin this? But yeah, our inflation is not going away anytime soon. No matter what anybody tries, it's not going away anytime soon. Let's grab one from the Hill. Dow down more than 450 points on recession fears from Zach Schoenfield. Stocks dropped steeply on Thursday as investors showed fears of a potential recession and currency volatility, erasing gains made during Wednesday's rally. The Dow dropped more than 450 points, or 1.5% to 29,227, while the Nasdaq fell by 2.8 and the New York Stock Exchange sunk by 1.6% when markets closed on Thursday. The S&P in the afternoon briefly fell to its lowest level since late 2020 before rising in the final minutes of trading, although all sectors suffered losses on Thursday. Investors have fixated on the Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes, which aimed at lowering demand to reduce inflation. Central bankers have expressed an intent to continue raising rates to curb price growth after multiple aggressive increases, potentially giving way to a recession. The Fed has warned that monetary tightening will likely produce an uptick in unemployment. But applications for unemployment benefits fell last week, according to a new jobless claims report released on Thursday, showing that few companies are laying off workers despite the high inflation rate or borrowing cost. Or, and this is the other side of it, people went out and got the new job, but they weren't at the job long enough to get unemployment insurance. That's also a possibility. One thing to keep in mind. Volatility in current markets has led to more fret, with stocks having climbed on Wednesday as the Bank of England intervened to buy long-term government bonds. The UK last week announced a plan to cut taxes and increase borrowing, spooking investors and sending yields soaring. The pound dropped to an all-time low against the dollar on Monday before the UK's central bank began its purchases. And by the way, UK, with all the gloating that you guys, especially, it was more the euro than the pound sterling. But to reverse what you said, all the way back when the euro and the pound were both ticking above the US dollar, now that the US dollar is ticking back above, it's called soccer again, not football. Get it right. Alright, that's what we see coming off of finance, and it's not good. And I'd be willing to bet that your 401k looks even worse by the end of the day. Let's get the live chat back up here so I can see what we have going here. And let's get into the news. Starting with the government. It is going to stay open. And a great sadness falls upon the land. From NBC, Senate passes government funding bill, sending it to the White House to avoid a shutdown. I'm sorry, sending it to the House, not the White House, to avoid a shutdown. Now, my big question for this, and we'll look at this from both NBC and CNN, is the permitting reform going to be there? And if it is the Progressive Caucus going to sink this? Because do keep in mind, that's still a possibility. Biden's going to sign whatever comes across his desk. He's not even going to read it. He's just going to say, hey, what's this piece of paper here? No, just sign it, Uncle Joe. No. Just sign it. There you go. There you go. From Sahil Kapoor, the Senate voted 72 to 25 on Thursday to pass a bill to keep the government funded until December 16th, putting Congress on a path to avert a shutdown this weekend. The stopgap gives negotiators time to hammer out a full-year funding agreement after the November midterm elections. The legislation now goes to the House, which is expected to pass it before Friday midnight deadline to avoid a funding lapse. But Democrats may get little Republican help as House GOP leaders are encouraging members to vote against the measure. Good. The last thing the American people need right now is a pointless government shutdown. No, I think that's the thing that the American people need the most right now, Chuck U. Schumer. I'm optimistic that we're on track to avoiding one well before the funding deadline. I thank all my colleagues for their good work and their cooperation. Relatively short one, but we're saved! The government can be open again to screw everybody over. Let's read a little bit on CNN and see if we can see anything that's in the bill. Senate approves government funding extension to avert shutdown, from Claire Ferran, Ted Barrett, and Ellie Kaufman. The Senate voted on Thursday to approve a short-term government funding extension that would prevent a shutdown at the end of the week. The bill was approved on a bipartisan basis with a vote of 72 to 25. Government funding is currently on track to expire at Friday at midnight, but the stopgap would extend funding through December 16th, setting up a potential funding fight at the end of the year instead. Pay attention to that date, because that's going to be important. The House will next need to pass the measure once it's approved by the Senate before it can be sent to Biden for his signature. Lawmakers have expressed confidence there will not be a shutdown, but it's typical of Congress in the recent years to run up right against funding deadlines. In part, that's because opposing parties find it easier to reach last-minute deals to stave off shutdown under tight time pressure. This time around, neither party wants to be blamed for a shutdown, especially so close to the consequential November midterm elections where Congress is at stake, and Democrats and Republicans are both trying to make the case to voters that they should be the majority. Lawmakers up for re-election are also eager to finish up work on Capitol Hill so they can return to their home states to campaign. In a sight of how much lawmakers want to prioritize their time on the campaign trail, Chuck U. Schumer announced Thursday that there will be no roll call votes in the Senate until after the November midterms. In addition to money to keep the government agencies afloat, the short-term funding measure unveiled earlier this week provides around $12 billion for Ukraine as it continues to counter Russia's invasion of the country, and would require the Pentagon to report on how U.S. dollars have been spent there. The aid to Ukraine is a bipartisan priority. No, it's really not. It's a very partisan priority. The CR would also extend an expiring FDA user fee program for 5 years. The Senate took a key vote to advance the government funding measure earlier this week after West Virginia Democrat Senator Joe Manchin dropped a request to include a controversial permitting reform proposal that had come up under sharp criticism from Republicans and liberals. Okay, so they are going to pass it, and Manchin got screwed. They turned around and they got his signature on the Inflation Production Act, and then they said, "Oops, I guess our funding bill can't pass. So, oops, nope, sorry. We gotta take your permitting reform out of there. Sorry." That is funny. Senate leaders have been pushing to pass it along with the government funding as a result of a deal cut to secure Manchin's support for Democrats' Inflation Production Act, a key priority for the party, which passed over the summer. But Republicans warned they would vote against the effort to tie permitting reform to the funding extension, in part because they did not want to reward Manchin over his support for the Inflation Production Act. At the same time, some liberal members of the Senate Democratic Caucus had expressed concern over environmental impacts. On the additional funding, the $12 billion additional funding for Ukraine provides money for the U.S. to continue sending weapons, money to replenish U.S. stocks of weapons that have been sent over to Ukraine for the past 7 months during the ongoing conflict, and additional economic support. So, all of the defense contractors that Democrats hated up until Joe Biden became the President of the United States are going to get even richer now. In order to continue providing Ukraine with a weapon to counter Russia's offensive, the bill allocates an additional $3 billion for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. This pot of money allows the U.S. to procure and purchase weapons from industry and send them to the country. And meanwhile, the stock portfolios of the Congress members who have stocks in Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Halliburton, and what's the other big one? I think it's Leeds. Instead of drawing directly from U.S. stockpiles of weapons. The bill also authorizes an additional $3.7 billion in Presidential Drawdown Authority funding, which allows the U.S. to send weapons directly from U.S. stockpiles, which will be replenished by Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Halliburton, etc. And there we go, $1.5 billion included to replenish U.S. stocks of equipment provided to Ukraine. A fact sheet from Senate Democrats about the bill states. Oh, I can't believe I'm actually seeing this. I can't believe I'm seeing Democrats support the war effort. Well, I can believe it because they have no standards and no morals, but I mean, this was the big, when I was a Democrat, this was the big thing. This was the top priority. I remember the Jib Jab song, "Better Make Some Calls to Halliburton." I wonder if we can play that without getting a copyright pop. Yeah, this, because the Jib Jab people mock everybody, but you know, this was like my Ubermensch Democrat, Union Democrat ex-fiance at the time. Loved showing these videos around to say just how evil Bush was. Let me see. I don't know if I'll put the video up, but we'll put the audio up just to see what the difference is. Jib Jab. This one. Copyright pop incoming in 3, 2, 1.
Jab.
Oh, I wish our winning were a bit more certain.
Better call my friends at Halliburton.
We will pay, so we stay.
Rule the day.
DC land.
I'm sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, too, that we can go right up to the top of the video and see the point that I was trying to make, that, yes, it used to be the mockery of the Bushes to go and fund out the defense contractors because they were getting kickbacks off of them. And now it's like, okay, let's go shovel some more money into the defense contractors. But hey, the government's going to be open. And by the way, note again the date. I said that a little bit earlier when we were reading up this. The extension that they're doing right now only goes to December 16th, which means, and this was warned about by the House GOP and the Senate GOP, that they were only going to fund it through the middle of December so they would know what's happening after the midterm so they can see whether or not they have to come back out and make an emergency last-minute spending spree. I believe that spending spree will be blocked in the Senate. However, that means that we'll come back out and get another government shutdown, but now with the incoming Republicans coming back into it. This should have been blocked just on the date by itself. The government funding should have gone through to January 16th. And the fact that this passed 72 to 24 reminds you that the Republicans that are in the Senate don't care a damn about you. It's all about power. That's all that it is. It's all about power. All right, we got a lot of foreign news to cover. Kamala Harris at the DMZ, Russia annexation plan, and then we'll come back over to our side of the pond and talk about the Mental Health Matters bill that means nothing about mental health or school. So let's get into it. Let's start with this because I want to see if any of you guys can translate this for me because I couldn't understand it. Sebastian Cork even tweeting out, "What is she saying?" All right, let's see. Let's see what it is that she's saying. And hear what she has to say when she says the things that she's saying. And what the meaning is by her saying the things that she's saying. If you think I'm being hyperbolic and making fun of Kamala Harris, well, let's listen.
Today, the business of our work is for the Council to report on the work that has occurred since our last meeting across these areas. We will today also discuss the work yet ahead, the work we must still do to continue to move forward. Today, the business of our work is for the Council to report on the work that has occurred since our last meeting across these areas. We will today also discuss the work yet ahead, the work we must still do to continue to move forward.
What? Is my problem, my question is this her doing this and trying to do this off the cuff, or is this her speechwriter just trolling her? Yeah, the audio only came from one channel, unfortunately, because I could see it in my monitor. That was only on the right channel. Nothing was coming through on the left channel. What do you think? All right, well, we'll do a poll with the 9 people that are watching. Unless you're driving, then no texting and driving. But we'll do a poll in the chat. Do you think it's Kamala Harris trying to do this off the cuff? 1 for Kamala Harris, or 2, do you think it's her speechwriter trolling her? 2 for speechwriter. 1 for Kamala, 2 for speechwriter. Meanwhile, we'll move on and listen to the other thing that she has to say about our new ally in North Korea. From RNC Research, Kamala Harris, the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. Okay, if that's the case, and yes, she actually says that, then what's all the little red button talk about?
So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring. So the United States...
So that's news. I guess I didn't realize that we had an alliance with these people. And not an adversarial relationship. I was sure it was an adversarial relationship. Let me switch this one out because I want to do this one first. Vice President Harris commends U.S. alliance with Republic of North Korea and DMZ speech gaffe. From Andrea Vasciano. VP Harris made an unfortunate gaffe during her speech at the Korean Peninsula's demilitarized zone on Thursday, saying the U.S. has a strong alliance, although we might have a strong reliance too at this point, a strong alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that's strong and enduring, she added, intending to refer to the Republic of Korea, which is South Korea's official name. The vice president then continued her remark by professing the U.S.'s support for South Korea's defense against the increasingly aggressive North Korean government. I cannot state this enough, that the commitment of the United States to defense of the Republic of Korea is ironclad, and that we will do everything in our power to ensure that it has meaning in every way the word suggests, Harris said. The heavily fortified DMZ, a buffer zone that separates North and South Korea, was Harris's final stop on her diplomatic trip to Asia. The gesture of visiting the DMZ is designed to illustrate America's rock-solid commitment to regional security according to the White House press secretary, token diversity hire. Harris began her visit by stopping at Camp Bonifa's dining facility and thanking American service members. She used binoculars to observe the DMZ, which is roughly 160 miles long and 2.5 miles wide. The vice president then headed to the observation post Uolet to give her speech about the commitment to South Korea's security. Shortly before the DMZ visit, Harris met with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and praised the U.S.-South Korean alliance as a linchpin of security and prosperity. She and Yoon discussed the South Korea's economic and technology partnerships with the U.S. earlier on Thursday, in addition to Gender Equity Roundtable. Yes, well, you're here because of gender equity. The visit comes a day after North Korea fired a third ballistic missile into the sea in an act of provocation by Kim Jong-un. I'd like a citation of that. The country has previously fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles during Harris's stay in Japan. North Korea also made a similar gesture in June, firing a trio of missiles before President Biden's visit to Seoul that month. Harris condemned North Korea's illicit weapons program during a Wednesday speech at U.S. fleet activities in Yokosuka, a U.S. naval base. Do you remember when the missile stopped? Do you remember when that stopped briefly? Because somebody had the good sense to go actually walk across the DMZ. Oh wait, no, that was legitimizing him, and that's wrong. Diversity hire said North Korea's missile test was not unusual on Wednesday, while affirming that it would not dissuade Harris from visiting the DMZ. So, we've got a short one from CNN talking about her visit to the DMZ. Well, actually, I might just gloss over this one quick. because we've actually got video of her there. Harris at the DMZ. It's something actually to see this with your own eyes. It's so close. Ma'am, that's 50 meters away. That's North Korea at the woodline. That's it.
Something that needs to actually see in your own eyes. And it's so close.
It's 50 meters away, man. That's North
right, that's
Korea at
it.
the wood line.
That's it.
That's North Korea at the wood line. It's 50 meters away. Amazing. Another border she can't see. I like that. That's funny. So, if you remember Miss Harris's last visit to a foreign nation, when she went over to visit in the Ukraine and make sure everything was going well, and then just a few days later, the tanks went rolling across the border in Ukraine. Does this mean that the Korean peninsula is now destabilized? I guess we'll see. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Speaking of that region of the world, Vladimir Putin is set to claim wide swaths of Ukraine after sham referenda. From Tim Pierce. Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to annex parts of eastern and southern Ukraine on Friday, claiming that forced referenda across 4 occupied regions support Russia's claim. Western leaders are scrambling to respond to what many have condemned as a land grab, according to Politico. Putin's move has raised concerns that Russia is committing itself to a long-term conflict with Ukraine, and that a resolution to the war may be much further off than European and North American leaders were hoping. Russian state media reported Tuesday that Ukraine's Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia regions voted overwhelmingly to break with Ukraine and join Russia. The referendum, which local Ukrainian officials said was coerced by Russian soldiers, took place on September 23rd to 27th. The results in each region were strikingly lopsided in favor of Russia: 99% in Donetsk, 98% in Luhansk, 87% in Kherson, and 93% in Zaporizhzhia. Putin said in a television appearance on Thursday that formation of more just world order is taking place, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper. He did not directly address the expected annexation, which covers an area of roughly 40,000 square miles. Unipolar hegemony is inexorably collapsing, he said. This is an objective reality that West categorically refuses to accept. And also you bring me moose and squirrel. Officials in the U.S. condemned the results of the referendum and Putin's claims to the region. This is Blinken. The Kremlin's sham referenda are a futile effort to mask what amounts to a further attempt at a land grab in Ukraine. Let's be clear. The results were orchestrated in Moscow and do not reflect the will of the people in the Ukraine, Anthony Blinken said in a statement on Thursday. Are you sure? Because at least 2 of the regions, a part of the reason that this all went down from the beginning was at least 2 of the regions that you mentioned in this particular article were occupied by separatists, people who didn't want to be a part of Russia at the time, but now probably do, because I'm sure that they're waiting for the US to come back and rein them back in if they go independent. But we're ready to come back and break off and be an independent nation. And now that you've ground in your heels, you've dug in, and you've sent billions upon billions Was it my old geometry and advanced math teacher in middle school and high school used to say? How many points are on a line? Billions and billions! Just like the amount of dollars that we've sent over to the Ukraine at this point. Man, if Nugget was still alive, he would be rolling at that joke right now. The U.S. does not and will never recognize the legitimacy or outcome of these sham referenda, or Russia's purported annexation of Ukrainian territory, he continued, which is an excuse to go back into another war, by the way. The spectacle conducted by Russia's proxies is illegitimate and violates international law. It's an affront to the principles of international peace and security. We had a vote. The people said they wanted to leave the Ukraine. What's the problem? In the U.S. Senate, Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham introduced legislation Thursday to block the U.S. aid from going to regions annexed by Russia. If Senator J. Edgar was in there, Senator J. Edgar would be introducing legislation to block U.S. aid from going to the Ukraine. Oh, and it's... Oh, we get to do the Graham voice, too. Sugar, we're dealing with Hurricane Putin right now. Oh, my God. Did he really just say Hurricane Putin? Oh. We're in a clown world, folks. That's the only way that I can say it at this point. We're in a clown world. Hurricane Putin, are you... I'm at a loss for words. And a lot of you guys are regulars here. You don't see me do loss for words very often. He actually said Hurricane Putin. In his increasingly gay, warmongery voice. He's trying to rewrite the map of Europe. He's trying to do about fourth of arms that we can't do by process. I wish somebody would do fourth of arms on my rectum. What can we do to get this dude out of the Senate? And you're as old as you are. I have no idea how old Lindsey Graham is. Let's find out. You're 67 years old. Go back to South Carolina to a seedy red light district and spend the rest of your days pretending to be a taffy apple. Let's see. Blumenthal added, "It's a land grab. It's a steal. It's another craven, brazen tactic by Vladimir Putin to test the West's support for Ukraine, and we are having none of it." Do you think they can actually start a war before November? The U.S. committed another $1.1 billion in security assistance, including weapons, ammunition, and other war goods, towards Ukraine's war effort on Wednesday. According to the U.S. Department of Defense, that brings U.S. security assistance committed to Ukraine since Russia's invasion in February to up to around $16.2 billion. Hey, I wonder why our inflation is going crazy. Some national security experts put the amount of security assistance committed higher, over $40 billion, since August of last year. The wide discrepancy is due to a confusing way in which the funds are pooled together and a lack of organization in tracking them. So it does appear that the map is going to have to change now because we are in a situation where several regions are annexed. Is it legitimate? Probably. Are they going to accept it? Absolutely not. From CNBC, fake referenda in occupied Ukraine set the stage for annexation and immense danger for Ukraine. From Holly Elliott, I don't know, I guess for me it would be get my people out of there and lick your wounds and be glad that Kiev never fell. Especially given the fact that the people in these regions seem to want to leave. Let's see. From Holly Elliott, the results from a series of so-called referenda that have taken place in occupied parts of Ukraine, which predictably show a resounding majority voting to join Russia, set the stage for Moscow to announce their annexation in the coming days. That, analysts say, could mark a dangerous point in the war for Ukraine, with the possibility that Russia could turn unconventional weapons, even nuclear weapons, to defend what it will say then is its territory and its citizens. At the risk of Russia using these votes in a subsequent annexation of those territories as a pretext for nuclear strikes, we are conscious of this risk. We understand that it's real. Yuri Sak, an advisor to Ukraine's defense minister, Oleksiy Reznikov, told CNBC on Wednesday. Even if Russia's leader is himself crazy enough to contemplate or even consider conducting a nuclear strike on Ukrainian territory, hopefully not all those people who surround him are that crazy. But again, this is not something that we can count on, so we, as Ukraine, this is Ukrainian. So we, as Ukraine, have to be prepared for worse, and the international community has to be prepared not to budge, not to cave to nuclear blackmail. Vladimir Putin and other top officials in Moscow have frequently warned that Russia could use nuclear weapons if it feels there's an existential threat to the Russian Federation. Just on Tuesday, Putin ally and former President Dmitry Medvedev wrote on Telegram that Russia has a right to use nuclear weapons if aggression with use of conventional weapons threatens the very existence of state. Medvedev once again repeated Moscow's false mantra that Ukraine was being controlled by NATO countries and said, "We will do everything to prevent appearance of nuclear weapons in hostile neighbors," adding that they understand that if threat to Russia exceeds established danger limit, we must respond. Those comments came after Putin said last week that Kremlin will certainly, by all means at their disposal, to protect Russia and our people. It is not bluff. The referenda, widely described as a sham by the international community, are seen as having created a pretext for Russia to annex the occupied Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions in the south and pro-Russian separatist republics in Luhansk and Donetsk in eastern Ukraine. The regions amount to around 15% of Ukraine's territory. And again, I state the obvious, all the way back in the 60s. If we would have just given the moose and squirrel, would we even be here at this point? And there's the map, by the way. Crimea, of course, being a territory already in question. Now Russia looks like they want to grab Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk, which these were already in question. But that does take out almost all of the port for Ukraine, giving them problems for their seaworthiness and their ability to trade worldwide. Let's gloss over this one, because it looks like we already know that they voted to join Russia and stage referenda. But do make sure you hit that donate button for NPR. Let's grab one from Reuters then. I know this is going to be a little bit of a longer one, but this is kind of the next step. From Reuters, Factbox, Russia's annexation plan in Ukraine. What happens now? Russian-backed separatists and Russian-installed officials in 4 partially Russian-controlled regions of Ukraine declared that voters had chosen to join Russia in hastily organized referenda, which the West have said were illegal. What happens now? I guess I'd have to see the claim that they're illegal and why they're supposedly illegal. Vladimir Putin says he'll never abandon the residents of these areas. Ukraine says Russia has a criminal state stealing its sovereign territory. We've got the results: 99.23, 94.4, or 98.42 rather, 87.05, and 93.11. What happens now? A tribune with a giant video screen has been set up in Moscow's Red Square with billboards proclaiming Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, Russia. The Russian-backed separatist leader in Luhansk, Leonid Paseknik, and the Russian-installed administrator in occupied Kherson, Vladimir Saldo, both said they had formally asked Putin to incorporate their territories into Russia. The separatist leaders of Luhansk and Donetsk, which Russia had previously recognized as independent states, together forming a region called Donbass, were both due to travel to Moscow. Donbass is Russia. It was, it is, and will be, Denis Pushilin, the leader of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, said before leaving. To annex the territories, some sort of treaty would be struck and ratified by the Russian parliament, which is controlled by Putin allies. The areas will be seen as part of Russia, and Moscow's nuclear umbrella will extend to them. Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly said that pseudo-referenda on annexation by Russia would destroy any chance of peace talks. What will the West do? The West and Ukraine say Russia is violating international law by taking 15% of Ukrainian territory, whose post-Soviet borders Moscow recognized shortly after the fall of the Soviet Union. The West could increase arms supplies to Kiev and tighten financial sanctions that are already the most severe imposed against a large economy in modern history. The areas that are being annexed are not all under control of Russian forces, so from a Kremlin perspective, once they do become a part of Russia, then fighting in a front line will run through Russian sovereign territory that could prompt some sort of ultimatum from Russia to Ukraine and the West. The Kremlin said on Wednesday its special military operation in Ukraine must continue at least until the capture of all eastern Ukraine's Donetsk region. So, a few things that are happening there, but it does look like yes. There has been an answer, and it just doesn't seem to be the answer that the West likes. I do anticipate that there could be a war before the end of the year that the U.S. is involved in. I can't say yes or no for certain on that, but I can see a possibility where that plays out. All right, let's bring some things back stateside. No, I got one more here before we do that because I got everything in the wrong order. From the Daily Mail, revealed Johns Hopkins doctor told her trans army officer wife to stop being a coward and to work through her ethical issues to hand over medical information on senior military officers to Russians, indictment shows. Somebody who hates America is giving information over to Russia? Let's see. From Ronnie Reyes for DailyMail.com. The wife of the U.S. Army's first trans officer told her to stop being a coward and to overlook ethical issues when the couple tried to hand over medical records of senior military officers and their families to the Russian government. Major Jamie Lee Henry, 39, and Johns Hopkins Dr. Anna Gabrielian, 36, were accused of using their secret security clearance at North Carolina's Fort Bragg to steal the records from the base's hospital, according to the Department of Justice. Fort Bragg is among one of the most populated military installations in the world, housing about 52,000 active duty soldiers. The base is home to the U.S. Army's Delta Force and Special Operations Forces. The couple from Rockville had communicated and met with an undercover FBI agent who they believed was from the Russian embassy in order to deliver the files that the Kremlin could exploit. According to the indictment, which was unsealed on Thursday, Gabrielian said that she was motivated by her patriotism to Russia, with Henry using her clearance as a staff internist to help secure the files. Dude. Aren't these things that show up when you start talking about secret clearance? I don't know where Sewell is, by the way, but he'd be the person to ask. Because, yeah, I would think that crap like this would show up. My point of view is that until the U.S. actually declares war in Russia, I'm able to help as much as I want, Henry allegedly told the undercover agent when they met to set up the deal in August. At that point, I'll have some ethical issues that I'll have to work through. You'll have to work through those ethical issues, Gabrielian allegedly replied, adding that Henry was a coward over fears of breaking HIPAA. I don't know if that used to be a dude or not. Can anybody confirm that used to be a dude? According to the indictment, Gabrielian, an instructor of anesthesiology and critical care medicine at Hopkins, told the undercover agent on August 17th that she was motivated by patriotism towards Russia to provide any assistance she could to Russia, even if it meant being fired or going to jail. I don't know why I'm not surprised, but I mean, and here's one too that's definitely presenting as female. I mean, you could almost never tell that used to be a dude. All right, let's bring some things back stateside here. Gotta hurry it along because there are a couple more that I definitely want to get through. So we might start skipping around a little bit. But we had a lot to talk about with Russia and the government staying open. From the Blaze, DOJ to invest $57 million in the criminal justice system to support reform and advance racial equity. From Candace Hathaway, the DOJ announced on Wednesday that it will invest nearly $57 million in the criminal justice system to support reform efforts and advance racial equity. The department hopes that the award will promote fairness in the correction system and align criminal justice practices with the latest science. Science! Trademark. The grants will be distributed by the DOJ's Office of Justice Programs and are designed to support the state, territory, local, and tribal levels. A portion of the award will be used to address wrongful convictions and protect the constitutional rights of the defendants and incarcerated individuals, the DOJ noted. The Office of Justice Programs stated that in compliance with the Executive Order 13985 and making award decisions, it will give priority consideration to applications that include projects that will promote racial equity and the removal of barriers to access and opportunity for communities that have been historically underserved, marginalized, and adversely affected by inequality. Equal justice is not a self-executing proposition. It takes work to make it real, and it will take a collective commitment from all of us at the federal, state, and local levels to bring that ideal to life, said Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta. These investments make good on a pledge by the DOJ to promote public safety and realize the promise of a just society that recognizes the dignity and humanity of everybody. The announcement listed a summary of 12 grants that the DOJ hopes will impact reform and equity efforts. Translation: $57 million is about to go get laundered through the DOJ so it can come back out and be campaign contributions. And in kind, as they go with this, they're also making a statement out to other people. And this is similar to a statement that was made on legalization here in Wisconsin by Tony Evers. This is another ploy because it's the last day of September, which means we go to the polls in less than 40 days. Sorry, I had to do some quick mental math there. So this is basically a campaign advertisement Hey, single issue voters, we need help to keep the House. And if you guys would like to see the statement here, we're not going to go through it on here because we're up on the clock, but I will put it both in the Discord and in the chat. Let's do that right now. Well, that's weird. It just kicked me out of the chat. So I guess we're probably going to have to use an alternate way to go back and check the chat, but let me see if they make me do a CAPTCHA. Nope, they didn't make me do a CAPTCHA. Let's try that again. There you go. That was weird. I went and I put that in the chat and it kicked me out to the login screen. I've never seen that happen before. Let's go ahead and put this up in the Discord if you guys want to go and look and see what their statement is. And this is their justice.gov. This is their official DOJ website. We'll put that in general chat. Have a look as we move on from this. Biden White House preparing to take executive action to protect DACA Dreamers. I'm going to put a pin in this because we're going to do this one on Monday. I'm going to say that right now because DACA is one of those things that kind of sticks in my side, and I do want to spend a little time on this one. So we'll put a pin in that one. But this one I do want to get to. Let's do this one first. From the Hill, House passes bill addressing mental health concerns among students, families, and educators. From Michael Schnell. The House passed a bill on Thursday that seeks to address mental health concerns among students, families, and educators aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which lawmakers say had a severe impact on those three groups. Well, see, that's what they say, but I've read the bill and there's nothing for that in it. The bill, titled the Mental Health Matters Act, passed largely party line, 220 to 205. One Republican rep, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, joined all of the Democrats in supporting it. The legislation, if passed by the Senate and signed into law, would provide grants to establish a pipeline for school-based mental health service professionals. Not really. No, I've read it cover to cover. That's not really in it. There is a little bit of lip service to go back out and funnel some money into the school system. But not much on how it's supposed to get spent. Additionally, it would grow the number of mental health experts at elementary and secondary schools that are based in high-need locations. So it's a giveaway to the inner city. The measures would direct the Department of Education to allocate those grants. The Department of Education would also be ordered to administer grants to state educational agencies to go towards recruiting and maintaining school-based mental health service providers at public elementary and secondary schools that are considered high need. Again, a major giveaway to the inner city. Passage of the bill comes roughly 2.5 years into the pinkpox pandemic, which has made mental health conditions more widespread. The WHO revealed in March that in the first year of the pandemic, the prevalence of anxiety and depression around the globe grew by roughly 25%. That's because you closed everything down. Our party line vote essentially comes out to 219 the yeas have it. 205 nays, with one yay coming out of the Republican Party to pass it at 220 to 205. And here is the bill. There are a few things that I want to go over with this. But I will also, as usual, when we talk about a law or piece of legislation, put it both in the Discord and in the live chat. Because I want you guys to be able to do this and know what it is you're voting for. And there is also about to be something incredibly racialist in the Discord. Yep, told you. Yeah, because of the rules that I have on my Discord, I can't show you what's in there, but you'll have to join the Discord and see. But Midget had to go put his commentary on things. Alright, but I do want to go and look a little bit at a couple of things with this here. So this is the bill in its full text. As you can see, it's quite long. It's quite lengthy. So this is H.R. 7780, report number 117484 in the House of Representatives. Mr. DeSaulnier, for himself, and Mr. Scott of Virginia, by proxy vote, introduced the following bill, which was referred to the Committee on Education and Labor. Additional sponsors, Mr. Sablon and Mrs. Sherphyllis McCormick. Reported with an amendment committed to the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union in order to be printed. So this is, the act may be cited as the Mental Health Matters Act. But let's go through some of what we have here. First, Early Childhood Mental Health Act. General Secretary of Health and Human Services, acting through the Assistant Secretary, or the admins of children, families. This section, referred to as Secretary, shall identify and review interventions, best practices, curriculum, staff trainings that improve behavioral health of children and that are evidence-based. Focus, demonstrate effectiveness across racial, ethnic, and geographic populations, or demonstrate the capacity to be adapted to be affected across populations. Offer a tiered approach addressing need, including universal interventions of all children, selected prevention for children demonstrating increased need, and indicated prevention for children demonstrating substantial need. Implementing interventions in Head Start programs. Evaluating implementation of interventions in Head Start. Funding. Authorization of appropriations. There's authorized to be appropriated $100 million for the period of fiscal years 2023 to 2032 for carrying out sections 103B, 104, and 106. The Building Pipeline of School-Based Mental Health Service Providers Act. So, of course, they want to make sure that there's a continuity going between your early childhood on through elementary, middle school, and high school. With a large amount of funding that goes with that. $200 million for fiscal year 2023 and each succeeding fiscal year. Elementary and Secondary School Counseling Act. And it goes on, and it actually goes up, Trauma-Informed Education Practices Act, and it goes on up through retirement. So this is a cradle-to-grave kind of thing. Innovate, Succeed, and Empower Act, or RISE Act. Respond, Innovate, Succeed, and Empower Act, or RISE Act. Section 103, subsection 6 of the Higher Education Act of 1965, 20 U.S. Code 1003, section 6, as amended by striking section 3, subsection 2, and inserting section 3. And strengthening Behavioral Benefits Act. Section 502A of the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974. When you boil this all down, by the way, and this goes out to $240 billion for the Employee Benefit Security Administration and $35 billion for the Solicitor of Labor, who just got a nice, big, blank check to go spend wherever he wants. This is another problem with the government and education, that they're trying to come back and see that their test scores are failing and their kids are leaving to either go homeschool or private school. So their solution is to go back and throw a bunch more money at it. And if you guys, again, do want to go back and read that, it is in both the live chat and the Discord. So go and check that out. This one I definitely want to get to. From our friends over at NPR. In a reversal, the Education Department is excluding many from student loan debt relief. From Corey Turner. And even if you don't get student loan debt relief, even if you still have to pay, it's still very important that you give your money to NPR, because they need to tell you why you should vote for student debt relief, even if you're not going to get it, even if you were promised it and you're not going to get it. So make sure you hit that donate button, because you might think for yourself, and that would be dangerous. NPR, never printing reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. In a remarkable reversal that will affect the fortunes of many student loan borrowers, the U.S. Department of Education has quietly changed its guidance around who qualifies for President Biden's sweeping student debt relief. Congratulations, you just did exactly what I knew you were going to do. At the center of the change are borrowers who took out federal student loans many years ago. Both Perkins loans and federal family education loans, issued and managed by private banks but guaranteed by the federal government, were once the mainstay of the federal student loan program until the FFEL program ended in 2010. Today, according to the federal data, more than 4 million borrowers have commercially held FFEL loans until Thursday. The department's own website advised these borrowers they could consolidate these loans into federal direct loans and thereby qualify for relief under Biden's debt cancellation program. On Thursday, though, the department quietly changed that language. It now says, as of September 29th, 2022, borrowers with federal student loans not held by the ED cannot obtain one-time debt relief by consolidating these loans into direct loans. So, the original language. Are federal family education loans or Perkins loans eligible for debt relief? All loans eligible for the student loan pause are also eligible for relief, including loans held by the ED and guarantee agencies. ED is assessing whether to provide relief to borrowers with privately owned federal student loans, including FFEL and Perkins loans, and is discussing this with private lenders. In the meantime, borrowers with privately held federal student loans can receive this relief by consolidating these loans into the direct loan program. All eligible borrowers will have until December 31st, 2023 to submit an application for debt relief. FFEL joint consolidation loans, often referred to as spousal consolidation loans, are not eligible for consolidation into the direct loan program under current law. On Thursday, we read that already. The new text. Are federal family education loans, program loans, or Perkins loans eligible for debt relief? All loans eligible for the student loan payment pause are also eligible for relief, including loans held by the ED and guarantee agencies. As of September 29th, 2022, borrowers with federal student loans are not held by the ED cannot obtain one-time debt relief by consolidating these loans into direct loans. So not only are you screwed if you have a private loan, which is, by the way, what most of mine are, not only are you screwed at that point, but on top of that, on top of everything else, you can't go back out and change these back over into federal loans. You got screwed. Borrowers with FFEL program loans and Perkins loans not held by the ED who have applied to consolidate in a direct loan program prior to September 29, 2022 are eligible for one-time debt relief through the direct loan program. ED is assessing whether there are alternative pathways to provide relief to borrowers with federal student loans not held by ED, including FFEL program and Perkins loans, and it's discussing it with private lenders. An admin official tells NPR that this change will not affect all 4 million borrowers with commercially held FFEL loans. The official says many FFEL borrowers also have direct loans and can still qualify to consolidate those FFEL loans, though that detail was not included in the department's updated guidance. Ultimately, this admin official says roughly 800,000 borrowers would be directly affected. It's unclear why the department reversed its direction on allowing FFEL borrowers with commercially held loans to consolidate and qualify for debt relief. Really? It's unclear? Because I figured it out in a second. They were able to promise something, and they're still trying to come back out and make it work without having to get Congress involved because they know they're about to fail. And in order to go into the private sector, Congress does need to be involved in that. Lest they face another legal challenge, which they're already facing off of this. And all of the big left-wing publications are already getting out there ready to tell you how evil the Republicans are and how evil the Republican-appointed court and justices and judges are. Because they're going to go block you from getting your student loan. And the Biden admin knows they don't have a leg to stand on right now. Not to mention, they've realized that this is going to blow out. It's still going to blow out the budget and the inflation. But they're trying to do something now to save face. And I'm pretty sure this is all going to get blocked. I think that the big item coming off of this is to try to get this stretched out past the midterms, because then when it doesn't happen, A, it saves us from some major amount of inflation, and B, then they can come out and see, see, the evil Republicans sued to block this, so they don't want you to have your debt relief. We tried, we really tried. And people bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And we've got other things out here, of course. Nina Turner said, cancel all student debt! Because that's what she does, is tweets things out that would bankrupt this country in all caps. And Jay Crowder comes back and says, not all student debt is government held, a large portion isn't. Government backed does not equal government held. Some debt, it's just powerless to wipe out. Yup. Some debt is just powerless to wipe out. By the way, if you went to any of those big name mechanic schools that were advertised on Power Block all those years ago when people still watched Spike TV, you don't qualify. Not at all. And those loans are still government backed, which means they can never go away. But you don't qualify. Alright. One that I know that we needed to talk about yesterday, but we didn't get to. From TMZ. Marjorie Taylor Greene, husband files for divorce! Exclusive! Update. 6:21 p.m. Pacific time. MTG's estranged husband, Perry Greene, tells TMZ, Marjorie has been my best friend for the last 29 years, and she's been an amazing mom. Our family is our most important thing that we have done. Perry adds, as we go on different paths, we will continue to focus on our 3 incredible kids and their future endeavors and our friendship. And, of course, the cringe first line of the article before the correction was, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not being reelected at home because her husband just pulled the plug on their marriage. By the way, for all of you guys who like that kind of thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene is single, or is about to be. I still think she's a plant, but I'm sure she's going to be getting all kinds of propositions. And from what I understand, there's probably all kinds of personals ads over on 4chan at this point. MTG's husband, Perry Greene, beelined to the court on Tuesday and filed for divorce. Filed to divorce the congresswoman from Georgia after 27 years of marriage, according to new legal docs obtained by TMZ. Marjorie and Perry tied the knot back in August 95 when she was still in college at the University of Georgia. They had 3 children together who are now all over the age of 18. It's unclear what led to the split. But in the docs, MTG's husband says that they had previously separated, and he wants the court to split up their assets and debts equally. MTG tells TMZ, "Marriage is a wonderful thing, and I'm a firm believer in it. Our society is formed by husband and wife, creating a family to nurture and protect. Together, Perry and I formed our family and raised 3 great kids. He gave me the best job title you can ever earn, Mom." She adds, "I'll always be grateful for how great a dad he is to our children." So, there are a few things with this. I can't say I didn't see this coming. Now, one of the things to go along with this is the fact that so much of the mainstream media was out to make it hard to be around Marjorie Taylor Greene. We saw the swatting. We saw the constant hit pieces. The two of them might actually stay together at some point but be separated on paper so that Perry can go and live a life free of what's going off of this. I've seen a lot of political power couples do that before. So, and it's sad to see when mom and dad can't get along and they go their separate ways, as the old country song said. But I can't say that if I was married to a congresswoman and there was a big swat that I would want to stay around, at least on paper. I really do think that's the biggest part of this, is the fact that there's so much targeted attack on her. My thoughts about her being a plant aside, there's so much targeted attack on her personally that I could see him being in a situation where he felt his safety was at risk. But I have not seen the court documents. The court documents, from what I understand, just say irreconcilable differences. So I guess we'll see. I bet you this pushes AOC to the altar quicker, though. Okay, puppy. Now Marjorie Taylor Greene is being divorced, so I want to be happier than her in marriage. Okay, puppy? Okay. Riley, come on. Put the camera down. We have to go to the altar now. Okay, puppy? So, we will see. Liz Cheney fuels talk of an independent bid because her name is Elizabeth Cheney from Julia, Manchester. I know we got to get closing out here pretty soon because I got to get myself out to work, and we still have to say thank you to everybody in the notebook and also read the live chat for today. So you guys start getting your live chats in. Liz Cheney's comment that she will not be a Republican if former President Trump wins the party in 2024 is sparking chatter that she might mount an independent White House run. While Cheney lost her House primary to the former president's endorsed candidate last month, her break with MAGA wing of the GOP has made her the leader of the anti-Trump movement among Republicans and beyond. It's unclear whether Cheney will run in 24 at all, whether she would run as an independent if she mounted a bid, or what impact an independent bid could have on what's shaping up to be another Trump-focused presidential election. But observers say that she'll continue to be an important figure in the national stage no matter what. Yeah, she's not going to. If she does it in an independent, it's just going to be to try to break votes away from Republicans. All right, I want to do these two, and then we'll head out of here for the day. I want to touch on this one real quick, though, before. Okay, so we're going to do 6 more. An update on an older story. Eliza Fletcher autopsy. Death caused by gunshot to head. Blunt force injury. From David Royer and Bria Jones. Eliza Fletcher died due to a gunshot wound to the back of the head and blunt force injury to the head, according to an autopsy report obtained on Thursday. Her manner of death was judged as a homicide by a forensic pathologist. With the West Tennessee Regional Forensic Center, the report was dated September 27th. Well, that's weird, because a gunshot to the back of the head, I mean, that could be 50-50. Homicide or suicide, just ask Hillary. Fletcher was out for a run near the University of Memphis on the morning of September 2nd. When she was allegedly confronted, kidnapped, and killed, her body was found September 5th outside an abandoned house in South Memphis. So, and we know the story of what happened there. We spent a lot of time talking about that on the day that Memphis seemed to burn for whatever reason. But because we did spend a couple days talking about this, I did want to get a little bit of closure to this one. So, yes, it does look like she got bashed in the head and then shot. Some law and crime for you. Out of my neck of the woods. Busing to resume on Friday at Oshkosh Area School District after catalytic converter thefts. Yeah, our economy's doing great. I'm actually a little surprised. I don't know if they were just hitting vans or whatnot, but usually on like a big bus, they don't have a catalytic converter. They've got DPF, DOC, SCR, which only one of those is actually valuable by weight. From Jason Zimmerman. Busing will resume in Oshkosh Area School District Friday after buses were targeted by catalytic converter thieves. This week, CoBusing is able to ship its buses that serve other school districts that are not in session tomorrow. Busing is expected to continue as normal next week. CoBusing is working to repair its buses. Reads a statement from the district. There was no busing on Thursday after thieves once again stole catalytic converters from school buses. The letter to Oshkosh families says families would have to make plans to get students to and from school. Co-curricular and field trip busing will continue as planned on Thursday. CoBusing will be able to provide the small number of buses needed for a short time from other terminals. Wednesday night, CoBusing had catalytic converters stolen from their entire fleet in Oshkosh. This includes buses brought in from other terminals to help after a theft earlier this week. While CoBusing has made every effort to resume regular busing for the OASD today, they have no option due to additional overnight thefts, reads a letter sent to parents. We understand this is a significant inconvenience and apologize for the disruption it causes you. On Wednesday, Action 2 News reported that catalytic converters were stolen off 11 buses at the company's Oshkosh location in Amaro Road earlier this week. So, I don't know if they have their terminology correct. And I am going to call a friend of mine up there and see if I'm correct on this. Because if they're taking them off the entire fleet of buses, school buses, then they're not taking catalytic converters because the school buses don't have a catalytic converter. They have what's called a diesel oxidation catalyst, which serves a similar function but not completely the same, but is also, you can get buku bucks. Now, when you get into your little Subaru or your little Honda or your pickup and drive around with a catalytic converter, it makes a whole bunch of noise if it got cut off, but you can still relatively regularly get up to highway speed and drive around and do what it is you need to do. You're not completely lost. Your eardrums are going to get blown out, but you're not completely lost at this point. If this is what I think that this is, and I'm like 99% sure that I know what this is, if there's no DOC in this, and they haven't had a programming update to it, because you're not supposed to know about this, but there is a delete for those. But if you're missing your DOC and you don't have the delete option done on that, at that point, the computer comes in and says, we have a problem. We're spitting way too much mini fumes out into the atmosphere. Oh no. The Department of Environmental Justice, the EPA, is going to come out and they're going to shut us down and they're going to kill us. They're going to take us all and bring us out to the wrecker. Okay, well, you're derated to 5 miles an hour. Those buses cannot run without a DOC. Well, they can. They can physically run. But the programming in the engine control module limits them to 5 miles an hour. Basically to get around the building and get into a point where they can get repaired artificially. So that is definitely not good. Alright, what else do we have? We did Cheney, TMZ, Politico. From The Blaze. Politico's founding editor calls for rewriting the Constitution to prevent 2024 Trump win. From Joseph McKinnon. If you can't win, change the rules, apparently. Democrats' 2024 presidential prospects have been characterized as being increasingly bleak. Among the many problems now facing the nation, the White House must contend with the responsibility over a looming recession, an unprecedented border crisis, and devastating opioid epidemic. With the majority of the country disapproving of President Biden's performance, 67% of voters say, sure the nation. I'm guessing that's supposed to be say, not sure. Say the nation is headed in the wrong direction, and indications that former President Trump may not only be able to win the GOP nomination, but potentially the forthcoming presidential election as well. Some liberals are contemplating extreme measures to keep him off the ballot. John F. Harris, founding editor of the news site Politico, recently suggested in an op-ed that the same system that enabled Trump to get elected in 2016 and 4 years later receive 7 million more votes than any sitting president in history, honk honk, must be changed. Harris wrote that, on the one hand, Trump is an enemy of the Constitution, yet Harris also admitted that from a progressive perspective, many of the most offensive features of his tenure were not in defiance of the Constitution. Despite presenting the former president as a constitutional menace, it is the Constitution and its problematic provisions that Harris intimated are more than menacing. Harris called the deference to the Constitution the indispensable foundation of American democracy, though suggested reverence would be going too far, particularly if it precludes the Americans from drastically altering these foundations. Harris argued a new constitutional consensus is needed in order to prevent Americans from voting for this candidate, to whom he is personally opposed, and to make progress on issues ranging from climate change to ensuring that technology giants act in the public interest. This consensus cannot be brought about just by stacking the Supreme Court with sympathetic justices, but by addressing more fundamental challenges embedded in the document itself, in particular the outsized power it gives to the states. That was the point. At a time when the most urgent problems and most credible remedies are national in character. No. The system, as is, will not provide the results so-called progressives desire, so a constitutional renovation is needed. Extra to minimizing states' rights, Harris observed an opportunity and need to clean up the infuriatingly murky language of the Second Amendment, to alter or abolish the Electoral College, and to impose term limits for the court. The obstacles to the realization of the left's agenda are the result of, according to Harris, what progressives reasonably perceive of as the infirmities of the Constitution. Harris likened the current moment to the latter part of the 19th century, drawing a parallel between former President Lincoln's abolishment of slavery in the Confederate States with progressives' potential elimination of America's outdated and intolerable Republican checks and balances. He threatened that a refusal to transmogrify the Constitution to sate progressives' political ambitions might result in conflict, in a civil war. Harris ultimately claimed that the improvisation to the Constitution would be one way to avoid kinetic civil strife by abolishing the Electoral College and potentially securing the 2024 Democratic candidate a victory by the way of popular vote. War can be averted. Harris is not alone in looking for ways to bypass the electorate to ensure Trump is not elected in 2024. Former Clinton campaign manager Dick Morris recently suggested that Democrats have given up opposing Trump politically. They know he's going to run again, and they know that Republicans are probably going to win because the economy is in such terrible shape. Morris told Newsmax that one strategy they have adopted is to litigate him to death, persecution by prosecution. The August raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence and the corresponding classified documents investigation, Carroll's defamation lawsuit, and New York AG Letitia James' fraud lawsuit are three prongs of a broader litigious endeavor to take Trump down. Earlier this summer, it was suggested in The Hill that testimonies given before the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 Selfie Fest could be used to justify the invocation of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Accordingly, Trump would be formally accused of participation in a selfie fest against the U.S. and disqualified from being president. Jamie Raskin, who sits on the committee, suggested earlier this year that the 14th Amendment might serve as a blockade for Trump ever being able to run for office again. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the former DNC chair, who publicly questioned the legitimacy of the presidential election, indicated she would continue to explore all legal paths to ensure that the people who try to subvert our democracy are not in charge of it. So, if the majority of the country wants one person to be in office, does that not mean that you're subverting democracy? And this is a real article, too, by the way. Another one that I'm going to put in the chat and the Discord, both. There's in the chat. There's in the Discord. You guys should read it for yourself. We'll go over it briefly because it's 9:29 and I've still got one more article I want to get to. From Politico, the best way to save the Constitution from Donald Trump is to rewrite it. From John F. Harris. Perhaps you wander through much of your life only mildly aware and mostly indifferent to the fact that there's something called Constitution Day. If so, consider me a fellow traveler. But in these times, in the wake of the January 6 Selfie Fest Committee's work on exposing Trump's assaults on the rule of law and the orderly transition of power, many responsible people have concluded that Constitution Day complacency is a privilege we can no longer afford. The official holiday is September 17th. You knew that, right? And in the week before and continuing this week, there have been a gusher of speeches and symposiums devoted to extolling the Constitution and illuminating the threats to it. Expressing solemn reverence for the Constitution has become a way of signaling right-mindedness across the political spectrum, even among Trump supporters whose actions plainly undermine the constitutional order. In much of this rhetoric, the Constitution is elevated from a secular document to a sacred one, infused with mystical dimensions. Deference to the Constitution, as Trump's depredations make it plain, is the indispensable foundation of the American democracy. But deference is different than reverence. Constitution Day 2022 arrived with more reasons to be frustrated by the defects of our national charter than at any time in generations. The occasion underlined two related Trump-era paradoxes that will likely shape our politics long after Trump's shadow lifts. First, Trump is properly seen as a constitutional menace, but from a progressive perspective, many of the most offensive features of his tenure were not defiance of the Constitution. So, he's a menace to it, but he followed it to the letter. He was in office in the first place because the presidency is chosen by the Electoral College rather than the popular vote. Yeah, we've been hearing that bullcrap since Bush. His influence will live for decades because partisan manipulation of the Senate's judicial confirmation gave him 3 Supreme Court justices. Partisan manipulation of the Senate's judicial confirmation, which were set in place by Harry Reid, I'll mind you, who have no term limits and face no practical mechanisms of accountability. Like some other presidents, but more so, he used the Constitution's absolute pardon power for nakedly self-interested reasons. In short, Trump may be an enemy of the Constitution, but he's also the president who most zealously exploited its defects. This leads to the second paradox. Anyone who's not a Trump backer properly bemoans the breakdown in constitutional consensus that allows his supporters to tolerate or celebrate his election denialism, in addition to other efforts to insulate him from the rule of law. Long-term, however, the more bracing challenge to the constitutional consensus is likely to come from the left from believers in activist government. This is a scary document. And I do encourage you to read it, because we're getting to this. Whether it be, again, adherence to the Constitution, over something that's not even that oppressive, by the way. You can say or do whatever crap you want against the government and the presidency, and not get in trouble for it. If people like this take over the country, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. If you speak out against the government, it will be illegal and you will go to prison if people like this get themselves back into power. And again, I do encourage you to read this. It's worth it. And the last one, I want to take from Variety. Well, we're not going to take the video from Variety because they have the full 45-minute interview, and I've got a 3-minute clip to go with it. And then we'll do live chat and head out of here for the day. Jordan Peterson breaks down in tears when asked about Olivia Wilde calling him a hero to the incel community. Sure, why not? Jordan Peterson broke down in tears during an interview on Piers Morgan Uncensored by a Mediaite when asked about Olivia Wilde referring to him as a hero of the incel community. Wilde was on her Don't Worry Darling press tour when she revealed to Interview magazine that Chris Pine's villainous character in the film, Frank, is based on Peterson. Wilde called Peterson the pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Sure, why not? Peterson said when Piers Morgan asked if Wilde's assessment of him was true. You know, people have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. Peterson then broke down in tears and said, It's very difficult, man, to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. You get these casual insults, these incels. What do they mean? These men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, be picky, man. That's your gift, man. Demand higher standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them. After calling Peterson a hero to incel community, Wilde describes incels as disenfranchised, mostly white men, who believe they are entitled to sex from women. And they believe that society has robbed them, that the idea of feminism is working against nature, that we must be put back into the correct place. This guy, Jordan Peterson, is someone that legitimizes certain aspects of their movement because he's a former professor, he's an author, he wears a suit, so they feel like this is a real philosophy that should be taken seriously, Wilde added. Peterson told Morgan that he wasn't too offended by Wilde's comments. It was a low-level insult, he said. Instead, the disc convinced Peterson to check out Don't Worry Darling trailer. I thought I'd go see the movie, and perhaps I will. It doesn't really bother me. Chris Pine is a very good-looking man. I hope he gets my fashion style choice right. When asked about why he got emotional discussing Wilde's comments, Peterson again fought back tears and said, It's really something to see, man. Constantly how many people are dying for lack of an encouraging word, and how easy it is to provide that if you're careful. Let's listen to the clip, or at least part of it. I know we're up on the clock. And it's very important for me to do live chat, but I wanted to get this one done and out before we head out of here for the weekend. Let's listen. Maybe. Refresh away.
Film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure. Why not? People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about that.
Well, God, you know, it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, like, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
When she said that, Olivia Wilde, it stung you, didn't it? I saw the
Oh,
reaction.
by that time, you know, that as far as critiques go, that was kind of low level. I mean, once I got painted as Red Skull, you know, magical super Nazi, that was kind of the end of the insults. There's no place past that. So when Olivia Wilde made those comments, the first thing I did was go look at the preview for a movie, which I quite liked. I thought I would go see that movie probably, and perhaps I will. It didn't really bother me. My family and I talked about it right away, and we were able to respond to it with some degree of humor, which then people completely misunderstood. I said I hope that, you know, that if I had to be played by someone, I think it's Chris Wilde, is that he's a very good-looking man, and so that seems all right, you know. And then I said something like, I hope he gets my fashion style choice right when he plays me. And it was a joke. All that was a joke.
I mean, you've been so controlled today, and yet in that brief moment, you got very emotional. Why?
It's really something to see constantly how many people are dying for lack of an encouraging word. And how easy it is to provide that if you're careful.
And that, I mean, that's where I want to end that out, because, you know, I do understand that entirely. When I was at my low point again, most recently, I don't want to go too much into that because YouTube has various controls and deranking ideas about if you say the S word. But when I was at that point in my life, the reason that I don't use Facebook anymore, most people who are watching me on Facebook, who knew me back then, knew that I was like daily poster, constant post off of that. It's because when I did fall off, when I walked away from it, because I was that depressed off of there, I couldn't get an encouraging word. My ex-girlfriend was abusive to me, emotionally, mentally, and nobody even called to check on me. Nobody called to see if I was doing okay, if I was, you know, if I just disappeared, and nobody reached out once to come and say, hey, can I do something for you? Can we go for a walk? Can we do something? It's just, oh, you disappeared. Okay, bye. Which means that, I mean, at that point in my life, that tells me that I didn't really have an importance in anybody's life. Nobody really wanted me around anymore. So, you know, why not take that extra step at that time? And now I do feel more like there are people that do want me around in their lives, and you know, every chance there's a big opportunity to come up down in Atlanta, the first question that comes up is, am I going and am I bringing the garlic? Maybe I'm just wanted for my pickled garlic, I don't know, but that's always seems to be the first question that comes up off of that. So there's that, and it is looking up for me now. But I understand what he means where he's saying that people can die over the fact that they're isolated, off and alone, and there isn't an encouraging word out there. So I don't know. I might go see this movie. That might be my 6th movie. But with that, we got to head out of here for the day. So let's throw some music up, and let's see what the live chat is doing today, because that's Friday. That's what we do on Fridays. We say Happy Friday. Sometimes we get hammered, except for me, because I have to work on Saturday mornings, and we look in at the live chat. So guys kind of picked up at the end. We have 11 live viewers watching too, by the way, which I think that means that some people are lurking, which is fine. No texting and driving. You guys know how I feel about that. I want you guys to come back every day, so I don't want you to get hurt in a car accident or something. But if you do want to get your name read live on the air, I got a little notebook here. I wrote down everybody's name who chatted in the live chat throughout the week in here, and everybody here is about to get a special thank you. And we'll go through some of your live chats from today as well. So, let's have a look. Let's have a glance, shall we? From Monday, our top chatters were Ron Helton, A. Gaines P., who, by the way, did resub on the Twitch side over the weekend. And I don't know who all got gift subs, but 33 minutes ago, Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut gave out 5 gift subs. I see that. As we remind you over here on my monitors, we'll bring this up over here so you guys can see, and we'll be picture in picture for a little bit. But yeah, I don't see what happens in the restream window here. Let's put that up so we block that a little bit. But I do have your monitor over here, so I can see what you guys do over here. So thank you for that. I was about to say, Gaines resubbed on Saturday, and when you leave a comment in the resub, it doesn't show up. Like, he had left a comment, that was his opening, was good evening, and I didn't see it because it doesn't come in over here. So I apologize to Gaines on Discord for not seeing him, but thank you for the resub, and then also the 5 gift subs from Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut. That's awesome. Thank you. And by the way, if you gift a sub or you hit your Amazon Prime sub, because they're always at level 1, that is just a little bit short of $250 directly in my pocket. Paid out as soon as it hits $100 over on Twitch. So thank you, 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 thank you. And the 5 of you who got gift subs, I can also use the emotes for tier 1 as well. Which includes, since we have ones out here, and I think you can't see them if you're over there. But the tier 1 emotes are, let me get them out here. That's your slate of tier 1 emotes that you can use now. Wow, now that I have 7 sub points over here, I'm actually gonna, I have incentive to go back and set up my tier 2s and tier 3s. I want to see if somebody will actually pay for the tier 3. I'll put it in the Discord. It'll be worth it. I'll put it up there. All right, what else do we have here? We have Vampire Hunter D, Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut, RBT-S, who was not a fan of mine by any chance, but he'll still get the thank you. He came in on the Twitch side. He watched the commercial. Randy Crush Saga, RVolt24, Major Victory, and Horatius. Tuesday, our chatters were Ron Helton, Randy Crush Saga, Job for 9 was here, Terry Very, RVolt24, MK Ultra, A Gaines P, Chilaga 1984, and Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut. Wednesday gave us Ron Helton, Job for 9, A Gaines P, RVolt24, Horatius, Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut, and Blind Fear. Yesterday was a busy day, by the way. I think yesterday had the most chatters in it yesterday. Yesterday was Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut was top chatter. Ron Helton close behind. And Quest Fanning, the return of Quest Fanning from his great vacation. And I see he was on the subway, so he is back in New York. RVolt24, Sully Blue, fighting off the storms over in Florida right now. He's probably busier than a cat covering crap right now because of all the cleanup. And I know what he does, and I know he's adjacent to the cleanup, so he's probably out there driving right now. He's probably listening to me saying he's out there driving right now. So drive safe and everything. Drive safe in all of it. Let's see. Sedavacantus Bear, Chilaga 1984, 80s Kid, A Gaines P, and Vampire Hunter D were our top chatters yesterday. Today we just hit 100 messages. Well, let's bring her back up to the top and let's see what you guys had to say today on the news. Ron Helton with the sticker party. Good morning. Jay Edgar and fellow Ed Heads and the Fed. Come on, man. And the wandering eye of AOC. Ron Helton says, and here the demon rats berated Trump for trying to make peace, and they're making alliances with North Korea. They skipped the peace process and went straight to making an alliance. Let's see. Arbolt is here. Gaines is here. Randy is here. Quest Fanning is here. Got to fix my D-Live sign-in, so I know I'll be missing some of the chat by being on YouTube. Well, I think you'll just be missing the stickers, because I think you get all the rest of it. Ron Helton, Kamala, my bra's too tight, and I'm way past my shelf life. Arvolt, is it just me or is the audio off? No, it was on one channel, and I guess we've determined you only had one earbud in. Yeah, I could only hear it out of this ear, and then I looked over on the monitor and saw for sure that, yes, over there. Arvolt and Randy both say that it's Kamala, not the speechwriter. I think the speechwriter's doing a little bit of trolling. Randy says, I remember when Trump legitimized North Korea by meeting with Kim Jong-un. Arvolt says, if only Kamala would visit our border, or our DMZ. Ron says, the Donbass was part of Russia for centuries. It was the commies who broke it off and added other regions to create Ukraine. In other words, the West is defending the commie fiction of the country of Ukraine. Fort Bragg usually has the units that are first to deploy. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah, it says so in the title. The dude who lost his damn mind. Sure, you can tell it's a chick. Look at the large Adam's apple. Ron says the government has zero mandate to manage education. This is commie crap. Arvolt, something very racist was said in the Discord. Arvolt, of course it was midget. Who else would it be? It might be Spartan, but he didn't like the fact that I set up a channel for him so I could yeet it in case the Discord mods came around, and he got mad, and now he doesn't chat anymore.
This is a Game Chops jam.
Gain says, man, they snatched that carrot back fast. Look here, fat! Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut is here with the sub party. Thank you very much for that. Ron Helton says, 29 years, they flushed it down the toilet. Is that a Legend of Zelda emote? Hold on, I gotta go to the Twitch side and see. I gotta scroll back a little bit, because if that's a Legend of Zelda emote, I gotta see if I can get the source code for that and put it in here. It says Serini 120 Dab. So, no, it's not a Legend of Zelda one. Looked like it from this screen. It's like Link holding a little sword. But no, it's dabbing. Ron says, I don't know, I have plenty of girlfriends for now. No, Marjorie Taylor Greene for Ron Helton. Ron, as fantasy of marrying AOC once again rears its ugly head. Quest Fanning says Liz Cheney has the same presidential prospects as the porn lawyer. Horatius is here, says Cheney has no shame. No one will ever vote for her. She's mentally deranged as her father. Well, a lot of people voted for her father, so... What are you doing, Step Hunter? Biden at least had a record, albeit a crappy one. Arvolt, just in, Ukraine submits application to join NATO. Ukraine announces fast-track NATO membership bid, rules out Putin talks. Yes, 12 minutes ago. All right, we'll put a pin in that. We'll do that on Monday. But gosh, that's a big bus problem. Inside job? Actually, that might be. There is a distinct possibility of that. Maybe they're using school vans, the ones with the front of a van and a box in the back. That's still usually a diesel engine, though. And that has a DOC. Not a catalytic converter. Oh, and screw Zelensky. Nice. Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut says, celebrating, got a nice increase to my VA benefits. On top of the new job, has me on track to make over triple annual income I've been making, so I'm searching for a new place to live. Tired of having crappy drug addicts for neighbors. Go out in the country, man. Quest says, remember when some folks actually understood our founding documents were to be timeless, rather than address current political expediency? And Ron says, Pepperidge Farm remembers. Quest says those checks and balances will look a lot more tolerable to the left when they're back out of power. Horatius says, all the white traitors are going to regret it one day when the society they think they are for takes them down too. I did have to jump off on that and not do the bad language because we are trying to cater to an AM radio audience. Fanning says, and yes, they will fall out of power when the centrists have had enough guidance from the fringe. Horatius says, don't try to understand their completely illogical brainwash thinking. It will hurt your brain, and there's no answer on how they can be so demented. Ron Helm says there's no rule of law. That's some goofy statement they always repeat when they rob you blind. Horatius is not buying Peterson's tears, but he also says Piers is one of the most despicable people in the world, which is fair. He can go F himself, and Fox for putting an end to their channel. Or putting him on their channel, rather. I wish they'd put an end to their channel. Horatius says, men don't matter in this current world, at least. Men know this. The world revolves around women and pandering to them. Ron says, ever heard of MGTOW? Is that still a thing? We as men have to work on improving ourselves and stop catering to the feckless. Gaines needs to update his premium info after a recent identity theft issue. Currently shows me as not subbed, even though I just resubbed. MGTOW put forth good arguments, but they don't realize what they are saying is a road to nowhere. And against man's nature, they should focus on solutions to the situation men are in nowadays. Yeah. I went to some good people. Chilaga, KTZed, Randy, Arbolt, and Xenocider Omega. Thank you. Chilaga's here. Happy Friday. Chilaga's now subbed, by the way, so you can use the emotes. Quest says vacation's over, so you'll be seeing a lot of me again. Some people just don't show up for me on YouTube. I believe others see more on YouTube than I do, but I've been seeing some folks show up on DLive, but not on YouTube. It might be the top chat setting too, and I know YouTube does censor some stuff. Jake Paul's Tiny Lip Nut says, I'm going to call this company in a bit about their townhomes. They had some nice places. Quest says, I only had the best drug addicts for neighbors. And Horatius says, you're a good dude. Glad you hung in there. Yeah, it was tough for a while. It really was. But, now we're here. Now we're doing stuff. And it is 9:55, and I still have to go put on pants before I can get out and go to work. So we got to change up the track, and I got to hurry. Where's that outro music? There it is. Well, what a day, and a lot of live chat too. And we did get a lot done. I know I pushed it out to the end as far as I could, but we got a lot done. Thank you for the 5 gift subs. Thank you, and enjoy the new emotes, everybody who did get a gift sub as well. This is going to be a good time. Of course, the most important thing you can do is go out and tell other people to get in here, but don't worry, I enjoy the money too, quite a bit. I enjoy that quite a bit, so thanks everybody. We'll be back here. I'll come back and do a stream tomorrow. We'll go finish out some Fallout 3. I am getting excited to go play something else other than Fallout. So Mass Effect is on deck. I'm working on getting some other things ready to go so we can do other games. I know Sully wanted to see some Zelda, so we'll do that. I think Pokemon is on deck. On a totally legitimate service, by the way. Totally legitimate. No, we won't do emulation because that would be illegal. I know one of the Assassin's Creeds I've got on deck, so we'll probably do that. I got a litany of games and stuff that I can play now. I've got BioShock too that we could do. Stuff that I can play that I wasn't able to over on the old laptop. So looking forward to doing some more of that. Otherwise, come back and join us Monday morning for more news and more headlines, including probably the NATO bid. That's probably going to be the big thing as well. So we will see what's happening with that. We will look into the midterms. I got to get out of here. Stick around for the raid if you're over on Twitch, and we will see you next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.